Jaya Radha Jaya Jai Mahaprabhu. You are one of the teachers. Yeah. So just in case if anyone had any doubt, uh, please go by my yard. Guys were at the right place at the right time. I was at the right place at the wrong time. Yeah. And we found out that she's not able. Well, she was. Malati Prabhu was thinking somehow that it's tomorrow, so they needed a last minute substitute. So we'll try my best. I was thinking the nice thing about this is now I don't have to prepare for the class. I just do the class, whatever happens, and if it's a little spontaneous, all of you will forgive me because you know it's spontaneous. No, thank you. Mm. Well, only by your blessings, this thing good will come out. Please. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm reading from Canto 9, Chapter 11, Lord Ramacandra Rules the World, and text 24. This is actually a really nice section of text where Srila Prabhupada talks about um, leadership and the glories of Lord Ramachandra and the Rayan. And this is something that. Yes, 25. Is it 25? Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. It's 20. It's 25. It's 25. Thank you. 25. So 9, 11, 25. 24 doesn't have it's 25. Yes. So it's a nice section here. And one of my favorite sections, Prabhupada makes such nice points, wonderful purports, amazing purports in this section. And this another purport that I couldn't find at this last minute, which I'll also talk about. But we'll read. There's another purport. This one is actually the best one. So we're discussing this. But another one that is very relevant or connected with this. So just so we get a sense of this section, I want to actually start reading from text 23, where the Bhagavatam describes the benefits of reading the Ramayana. The primary benefit. What is the phala, the great benediction of reading or hearing Lord Rama's stories, Lord Rama's pastimes. So as in India, one of the the most commonly heard narration is the Ramayana. We'll hear it in families. It's recited in courts. Um, and the reason is because people find that as a result of reading the Ramayana, become more harmonious. People actually are able to work together. People are happier. Families are happier. Troubles within the family, relationship problems go away. And um, the Bhagavatam gives the Ramayana in a very succinct form because Shukadeva Goswami begins this section by Parikshit Maharaj that you've heard these stories again and again since your childhood because Lord Rama appeared millions of years ago, Parikshit Maharaj appeared 5,000 years ago. And so all the kings, this shows even at that time, were hearing and reciting the Ramayana. It was their sort of handbook, especially the kings, for leading the world, for leading a good life, a family life. So he says, in the Bhagavatam, I just have to give you a little summary of it. And the Bhagavatam focuses not so much on the story and the details of the story, but on two things. One is the emotions between the devotees. What is the feelings that the devotees are experiencing and the Lord is experiencing. So, for example, whenever there's separation between Lord Ram and Sita, the Bhagavatam spends a lot of time discussing that. The battle scene, the fighting scenes, it goes through like 2 verses, completes that whole, which is the largest volume of the Ramayana is the fighting, the battle scene. The Bhagavatam finished in 2 verses. What the Bhagavatam is interested in is what it's interested in general, which is bhakti, the viraha bhakti in particular, the separation that Mother Sita felt from Lord Ram and Lord Ram felt from Mother Sita, and the devotees and their mood, like Hanuman's mood towards Lord Ram. So the Bhagavatam is interested in that, and secondly, how the Ramayana will increase our devotion for the Lord. That's what the Ramayana, this is what Bhagavatam is interested in. So this text 23, chapter 11, text 23, which I'm starting from, it tells us the result of reading this narration of Lord Ram. Purusho Ramacharitam Shravanarupadharayan Anishamsya Paro Rajan Karma Bandha Vimuchyate Purusho Ramacharitam Shravanarupadharayan Anishamsya Paro Rajan Karma Bandha Vimuchyate. O King Parikshit, anyone who orally receives the narrations concerning the characteristics of Lord Ramachandra's pastimes will ultimately be freed from the disease of envy and thus be liberated from the bondage of fruitive activities. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that by hearing Lord Rama's pastimes, one becomes free from the disease of envy. And we see this, that this is often what causes conflicts in our families and communities, right? Is the feeling of envy. And when we see Lord Ram's life, he's interested in serving his father. He's interested in serving his brothers. His brothers are unconditionally interested in serving Lord Ram. And just by reading this, I remember also reading it as a child like that, you start to lose your feelings of envy for others. You see, this is the ideal person. They want to just serve. When Bharat comes to the forest and meets Lord Ram after Ram had vanished, um, then Bharat and Lord Ram have an argument. It's a big argument, as brothers argue. Right? And generally, brothers argue who's going to take the throne. But the argument that they're having is Bharat is telling Lord Ram, you must come back and take the throne. This throne is yours, and if you love me, then you should come back and take the throne. And Lord Ram is saying that no, I've taken a vow, I will not take this throne. The throne is yours. You should be on the throne. And like this, they have a battle and they go back and forth in their arguments and their discussions. And Bharat is very insistent. He's not accepting no as an answer. And he says that I love you so much. So why are you saying no to what I'm requesting you? And and then finally Vashishta Muni is there, and he comments. It's actually in the Ramayana. He says that how wonderful it is that these brothers are fighting over um, over the throne, but on who's not to take the throne. That's what they're fighting over. And then he tells Bharat. He says, if you truly love Ram, then uh, and this is what defeats Bharat. He says, then do what he wants you to do. Right? If you truly love him, then fulfill his desire. And his desire is that you take the throne and he stays in the forest. So then Bharat Maharaj returns with Lord Ram's slippers, and he puts the slippers as the king of Ayodhya, and he rules on behalf of those slippers. Right? And I was thinking in terms of spiritual leadership, right? That should be our mood. And if we lead in that mood, then it's so glorious that no, we are not the leaders, but we are simply performing the function of leadership on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, right? On behalf of the spiritual master, on behalf of the acharyas. Just like the pujari worships the Lord on behalf of his spiritual master, right? That's why they always offer it first to the spiritual master. The spiritual master offers it to the Lord. In the same way, spiritual leadership, ideal leadership, is where one does not think one to be the leader, but as a servant. And and this the whole world wants Ram Rajya. And Srila Prabhupada says this is the psychology of Ram Rajya, where we put the Lord as the leader and we are simply serving him. That's our meditation, our desire. Next verse. Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, how did the Lord conduct himself and how did he behave in relationship with his brothers, who were expansions of his own self? And how did his brothers and the inhabitants of Ayodhya treat him? So Parikshit Maharaj, being the ideal king, he's asking on behalf of the citizens. He's about to leave this world, but he's asking because it will benefit us that how was Lord Ramacandra in relation to his brothers? Now text 25, and we will recite this one. Shivadarayani Ruvacha Athadisha Digvijaye Bhratrim Sri Bhuvaneshwara Atmanam Darshayat Swanam Purim Aikshata Samnuga Shivadarayana Ruvacha Athadisha Digvijaye Bhratrim Sri Bhuvaneshwara Atmanam Darshayan Swana Purim Aikshata Sanuga Shibhadrani Ruvacha. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Atha, hereafter, when the Lord accepted the throne on the request of Bharat, Adhisha ordered Dikvijaye to conquer all the world. Bhratrin, his younger brothers, Tribhuvana Ishvara, the Lord of the universe, Atmanam, personally himself, Darashayan, giving audience, Svana, to the family members and the citizens, Purim, the city, Aikshata, supervised, Anuga, with other assistants. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Shukadev Goswami replied, after accepting the throne of the government by the fervent request of his younger brother Bharata, Lord Ramachandra ordered his younger brothers to go out and conquer the entire world, while he personally remained in the capital to give audience to all the citizens and residents of the palace and supervise the governmental affairs with his other assistants. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not allow any of his devotees or assistants to be engaged in sense gratification. The younger brothers of Lord Ramachandra were at home enjoying the personal presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the Lord ordered them to go out and achieve victory all over the world. It was the custom, and this custom in some places is still current, that all the other kings would have to accept the supremacy of the emperor. If the king of a small state did not accept the emperor's supremacy, there would be a fight. and the king of the small state would be obliged to accept the emperor as a supreme. Otherwise, it would not be possible for the emperor to rule the country. Lord Ramachandra showed his favor to his brothers by ordering them to go out. Many of the Lord's devotees residing in Vrindavan have taken the vow not to leave Vrindavan to preach Krishna consciousness. But the Lord says that Krishna consciousness should be spread all over the world, in every village and every town. This is the open order of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prithiviti ache yatanagaradigam sarvatma prachara hoive mora nam. A pure devotee, therefore, must execute the order of the Lord and must not gratify his senses by remaining stagnant in one place. False proud, thinking that because he does not leave Vrindavan but chants in a solitary place, he has become a great devotee. A devotee must carry out the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Yare dekhe tare kaha Krishna upadesh. Every devotee, therefore, should spread Krishna consciousness by preaching, asking whomever he meets to accept the order of the Personality of Godhead. The Lord said, Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam. Abandon all ways of religion and just surrender unto me. This is the order of the Lord, who speaks as a supreme emperor. Everyone should be induced to accept this order, for this is victory, Digvijaya, and it is a duty of the soldier, the devotee, to impress upon everyone this philosophy of life. Of course, those who are Kanishta Adhikaris do not preach, but the Lord shows mercy to them also, as he did by staying personally in Ayodhya to give audience to the people in general. One should not mistakenly think that the Lord asked his younger brothers to leave Ayodhya because he especially favored the citizens. The Lord is merciful to everyone, and he knows how to show his favor to each individual person according to his capacity. One who abides by the order of the Lord is a pure devotee. Om Jnanam Tandasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmaya Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadapa Padantika. So I'll read the translation one more time. During the reign of Lord Ram, Shukadeva Goswami replied, after accepting the throne of the government by the fervent request of his younger brother Bharata, Lord Ramachandra ordered his younger brothers to go out and conquer the entire world, while he personally remained in the capital to give audience to all the citizens and residents of the palace and supervise the governmental affairs with his other assistants. So there's such wonderful messages and teachings in this purport. Every line is so wonderful, and and in so many places, Prabhupada is almost repeating the same the same message. He's saying here, every devotee therefore should spread Krishna consciousness by preaching, asking whomever he meets to accept the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And similarly, at the end, it says, one who abides by the order of the Lord is a pure devotee. He defines a pure devotee, one who abides by the order of the Lord. Then another wonderful sentence is, the Lord is merciful to everyone. He knows how to show his favor to each individual person according to his capacity. So I was thinking about Lord Ramachandra's pastimes, then how that's my phone. How in the Ramayana every devotee is serving Lord Ramachandra according to their capacity, but their intense desire is to serve the Lord and to fulfill his order. Right? Just like we see Hanuman is so much glorified in Ramayana, right? He is the ideal devotee. But we also find Jatayu, and we find that Jatayu, when Ravana is taking away Mother Sita, and she's screaming for help. She's calling out for Lord Ram and asking, the trees to help, the living, any living entity in the forest that can hear her to help. Then Jatayu hears her cries and he recognizes that this is Mother Sita, white Lord Ram, and he wants to offer service to Lord Ram. Um, and though he is an old bird, it's described, though he knows that he's lost most of his strength. He's from like a previous millennium. He's been there for ages. He takes upon a battle with Ravana, a very ferocious battle, and with his wings he slaps him, and he's that renders Ravana unconscious. Um, Ravana drops his club, and it's like a good fight that they have. But it's described, and Jatayu himself says that, but because he's old, um, he starts to lose his strength. He starts to become weaker as the fight goes on. And at a certain point, Ravan pulls out his sword and he cuts off the wings of Jatayu, and Jatayu falls to the ground. And he's unsuccessful in saving Mother Sita from the hands of Ravana. But later on, when Lord Ram is walking through the forest, he finds Jatayu lying on the ground in the forest. And when he comes upon him, then there's a very sweet counter that we know about, a very nice exchange. Jatayu tells about the whereabouts of Mother Sita, that Ravan has in fact kidnapped her. It's like the first clue that he gets, that Lord Ram gets. And soon after that passes away. After that, Lord Ramachandra then personally performs the final rites of Jatayu, which at that time especially was something very unheard of because he was an animal. Jatayu was an animal, and a human being never performed final rites as an animal. But it's described that though Jatayu was unsuccessful, though he was so to say, um, he was unsuccessful, um, not strong enough to complete the purpose of his mission. His service to Lord Ram was as glorious as Hanuman's service to Lord Ram, and Hanuman was successful and victorious in whatever fight he took. Um, and Srila Prabhupada explains that this is because um, in devotional service, in our service to the Lord, what matters is our devotion, our bhakti, our intent of serving the Lord. Whether we are successful or unsuccessful, that is up to the Lord. And that's Krishna's teaching to Arjuna in the Gita, that leave the fruit to me. That's up to the Lord. What's important and valuable is our effort, is our desire to serve the Lord. And the effort that we make, success is in the Lord's hand. Similarly, we find that when Hanuman and the monkeys are building this bridge across the ocean, then all the different Vanaras, who are devotees of Lord Ram, are building the bridge according to their capacity. Some are bringing very large boulders, some are bringing small boulders, some are, uh, are doing whatever they can to help make this bridge. And very famous story, there's also this small squirrel who's also trying to help build the bridge. And he thinks that when Lord Ramachandra walks on this bridge, then the stones are very sharp, and these will cut his feet. And so let me put some sand on top of these stones so that when he walks, it's very. This small squirrel will be rolling in the ground, and as the squirrel rolls in the ground, um, it collects this dust on its body, and then it goes to the bridge, and it would then shake it off, so the dust would fall on the bridge, and then it would run back to the sand, roll around, and this way go back. So Hanuman, who was bringing these big boulders, thought that this squirrel was a disturbance, but he didn't want to crush on it or step on it. So he sort of, uh, you know, uh, pushes him aside, or begins laughing at him. Different versions of this story, and sees this, and he checks Hanuman, and he reminds him. He says that uh, the service of this small squirrel is as dear to me as your service as Hanuman, bringing these big boulders and or entire mountain peaks and putting it into the ocean. So I found these incidents in the Ramayana to be very significant, very meaningful uh, in a few different ways. And maybe some of us in the audience can share. What are some lessons that we can learn from this incident of Jatayu and this? What are some points that occur to you or come across? Yes. Actually, I was reminded of yesterday when Gaurav was mentioning about Abhimanyu. He knew he's going to go break the Chakravyuh and sack. Similarly, Jatayu also knew victory possible. He was very aware of his limitations in terms of fight, but he still endeavored. Yes. He is still abiding by the order of the Lord, right? Similarly, Abhimanyu was abiding by the order of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Even though most likely I will not be successful. Very nice. Thank you for that. Yes. Yes. Um, so I think Jatan know his strength, weakness, and he saw the opportunity. He know the threats also. And in the context, Jatayu see the desire there, this need, and he act upon because he see the opportunities are there, and he know that Lord Ram will protect it. That contribution part is there. If you know that what I'm doing is, I will not able to save, but at least he was alive until he gave the message to Ram. Yeah. So at the end, the contribution is he made the contribution. That's actually a nice point. That sometimes we don't know. Um, as a result of the service, the contribution that's there, the gift that the devotee gives to the world may come even after their lifetime, even many years after their lifetime. And in the case of Jatayu, perhaps the fight wasn't the most important part, but the fact that he could give that message to Lord Ram, that sort of unforeseen benefit of his service became most significant. You see there are needs are there. You see no one is around. He knows his weakness, but he's okay. I have intense desire. I'm waiting for the whole life to serve Lord Ramchandra. So my desire is there. And says, okay, you know that I'm not able to save because Ravan is very strong. But at least I can do something. At least I can alive and give the message. So, very nice. Yes. So different angle, but there are six wrestlers and one is kidnapping the wife. So Jataya gentleman knows the Dharma, sees that Dharma, and acts upon it without hesitation. When he has the strength to know, he wants to prevent that Dharma from happening. Very nice. Well, yes. So as a matter of Dharma, as his duty as kind of a protector, as a servant of the Lord, he's fulfilling that. Yes. Things here about courage, speaking of Jataya, because even though he knew in his old age, he's still even Srila Prabhupada asked numerous countries, it's that courage that we need. In the sense that there's no one there, raving, Islam itself is raving, but their faith in Srila Prabhupada is such Jataya's faith in Lord Ram had that as a strong willpower to let him go and serve the Lord and same courage as a leader. Yes. Expectation or of a result. Always think about the actual service and that we're doing in service. So it comes back in service. Yes. Yeah, there's a balance, they say, between recklessness and cowardice, and the virtue. the Western philosophers, Aristotle, say this that there's recklessness, which is just acting, uh, you know, recklessly being too much of a daredevil, and cowardice, not doing the right thing. The balance between that, the virtuous action is courage, and Jatayu is not acting recklessly or in a cowardly way, but he's acting in a courageous way. Right? There's courage there. That this is my dharma, it's my duty. I want to serve the Lord in this way, and this is the best course of action at this time that I can do, rather than just watching and letting this happen. So we had a lot of explanation on Jatayu. I was thinking maybe on the squirrel, if you have some comment, or if you want to, yeah. Yes. On the Jatayu, Lord Ramacandra, the way he reciprocates to Jatayu's needs, by performing, mm. Even though he did not have wishes, his own father. But the way he reciprocates, it shows that as a leader, a virtuous leader, any contribution somebody needs, and if we can reciprocate in a better way, actually kind of yes, significant. Yes, no, you actually bring up a very nice point, Prabhu. Thank you for bringing this. Um, that any contribution that anyone makes, regardless of who they are, their caste, their gender, the devotee sees the service and not, like Prahlad Maharaj says, even a dog eater who serves the Lord is better than because they have served the Lord. That is what the Lord says, and that is the essence of Lord Chaitanya's movement also, right? Such an important point that Prabhupada did not discriminate between and this is a theme in the Ramayana also, that Lord Ram takes the help of monkeys, of birds, of beasts, of bears, not of the high class, sophisticated members of the Kshatriya community. And that's very much and among those offenses, offenses to the devotee are the most serious offense, is the most serious offense. And he says among the offenses to the devotee, he says the most serious offense is to insult or denigrate a devotee based upon their birth. Right? So it says in the Nectar of Devotion. So Lord Ramachandra, in fact, it says in the Ramayana, he says that he is better than my father, Dashrath, because Jatayu and Dashrath were friends. This is how they knew each other. This is how Jatayu knew about Lord Ram and like that. Of course, he was a devotee in a spiritual sense, but in terms of material, better than my father. And he performs his final rites, doesn't make any distinction based upon his birth. I remember I was in Delhi serving, uh, uh, I was, around my spiritual master, Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and there's this one new devotee who had joined the temple, and he was a person off the street. Generally, um, the devotees who join ISKCON temples in India are from the educated class of people, because it's just that's we Prabhupada's books are very erudite and they attract the educated class of people. But this person, he was from a very simple, even more than simple village boy, and so he joined the temple, and his mannerisms were rather simple, right? What did else? So when he was in a conflict with someone, he would start slapping them, because that's what you do in your vision. Or he was just overall kind of rough on the edges, and he didn't really understand the concept of the line during prasadam, so he just go and give his plate, cut the line, and getting very he wasn't any physically violent or anything. He was just kind of a little more work with his body more than his words, as they do. So they were getting annoyed with him, so they took this complaint to my Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and they explained the problem. They started explaining, this is what this person is doing, this is what this person is doing, and And so we need to, ask him to leave or live and visit, because we've tried everything, it's not changing. And Maharaj was open to what they were saying. But then, in the course of saying this, then one person said, "Oh, well, what can we do? He comes from a low-class family." I distinctly remember this, and which was kind of like an obvious fact. I mean, the classism, casteism still exists in India, although it's officially outlawed, it's still there. So people think in terms of those ways. Um, and I distinctly remember the expression on his face just changed, and and he and he was just, how can you say how can you identify the fact that he's from a low class family? The whole thing stood around, and he didn't want to hear of it anymore. He just asked everyone to leave. Nothing got solved. His position wasn't changed, nothing. And then later on, Maharaj found a service for him. He says, "No, we can find a place is for him. Yes, he has those difficulties, but there has to be some room in Lord Chaitanya's movement for someone who may have different social mannerisms that we have." And finally, the service that was, and things worked out after that. But what I distinctly remember is after they said, "Oh, he comes from a low class family," Maharaj was furious. He was just, you know, your complaints are fine, but why are you seeing him as someone who comes from a certain family, from a certain background? Why are you making this distinction based upon his birth? So a very kind of telling moment. Yes. Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay. 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 Yes, sorry, I apologize. Mm. 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 Very nice. Yes. And can you do it very quickly? Because I realize we're almost out of time. I want to cover everything. Yes. Uh, mm, mm. Yes. 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 Mm. Yes. Thank you. Yes. I was thinking also how this um, the example of the squirrel and Hanuman, that analogy, um, how in our spiritual lives to be we want to serve the Lord in to not serve the Lord to our best capacity and not to improve our skills to serve the Lord is a problem, because part of our service is to do it well for Krishna. But also, if we do our service well for Krishna and we become very skilled, very influential, very good at what we do, that is also a problem. Folk stories, we don't know exactly how it happened, but they're repeated again and again. So in this case, Hanuman is so powerful and so expert, yet he forgets that his capacity is greater, like it was said in this purport. But that doesn't mean that the squirrel was any less dear to Lord Ram than Hanuman was, from in an absolute sense. And the squirrel's service was was so valuable to the Lord. And one of the things I think we observe that that leaders can sometimes forget, and that oftentimes leads to then difficulties in our spiritual life is uh, if one becomes very good at their service, very influential, very powerful, to to get this principle that every devotee service is and every devotee is equally valuable to the Lord. And if we forget that and we offend a devotee, then there's so much tribulation in that in the life of the devotee leader or the community, because our capacity is a gift of the Lord. It doesn't belong to us. Krishna therefore tells us, "Mitra matram bhavasavya sachi," that become my instrument. Our capacity to serve, our capacity to lead is given to us by the Lord. A final point that I just wanted to comment on was how one of the themes of this purport is that Prabhupada is saying that a devotee does not, um, or the Lord sends his devotees outside of Vrindavan to carry out his order, to preach and go outside. Similarly, a devotee is not so eager to be in Vrindavan, but is more eager to fulfill the order of the Lord. As that Vrindavan is for Krishna's pleasure, and I am simply the servant of the Lord. And this was also a point that Gauranga Prabhu mentioned in a different class, where he says that a devotee at a certain stage is attached to their service, but as we advance further, we're more attached to being a servant than we're attached to the service. Leadership or no leadership, Krishna gives you this or not, my identity is not this service. My identity is being a servant, either as a squirrel or as Hanuman or as Jatayu. In whatever way, I'm a servant. Similarly, part of being that a servant is residing or doing what Krishna wants us to do. And generally speaking, unless Krishna makes it clear to us, he wants us to be preaching his message, to helping others rather than simply living in Vrindavan for our own spiritual edification. He wants us to take this door to door, town to every town and village. And when His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, when he left this world, it kind of disturbed my mind, as with so many people, so many devotees, that this question was one of the most common questions that came up was, why did he have to leave like this, in Florida, in a hospital during COVID time, with a ventilator. None of his disciples, none of the devotees could be near him, so he couldn't be in Vrindavan Dham. And of course, we know that this is the response, but still, that it wasn't really, I heard the response, the wonderful answers. But then, just recently, when Gopal Krishna Maharaj left, then he also, it was a COVID time, but he left in Dehradun and he had a ventilator. One of his lungs had collapsed. And all the devotees that had expected that he'll leave in Vrindavan. In fact, Maharaj had even indicated that, after he passes away, he wanted his samadhi to be in Vrindavan. So I always thought he'll give time, and before he went to Dehradun, uh, many devotees were telling Maharaj, don't go. This will be too much travel for you. It's a new place. And there's also some exchanges where Maharaj had indicated that he sort of knew that time had come, he was going. Prabhu knows about this even more than I do. Again, he left in Dehradun, in the hospital there, not in Vrindavan Dham. And when he also left in this way, then, of course, we cannot understand the mind of a devotee. They have their own, but just for my own small, um, reflection on this verse, I was thinking that one of the messages that they're passing as showing is that the devotee is so eager to fulfill the order of of the Lord, that they're not even in anxiety to leave their body in Vrindavan. Right? Like, it was getting elderly. He could have, the last time before this, when he was in Vrindavan, devotees were saying, Maharaj, just stay here, don't travel now. So he knew very well that he could have stayed in Vrindavan for the final days. And he knew very well that he didn't have to travel, or that he would leave his body somewhere else. But the order of the Lord is so important to the devotee that they're not, although a devotee desires to leave their body in Vrindavan, but preaching Krishna consciousness is more important. And they're not willing to even compromise even a little preaching, even towards the end of their life, if that's the order to stay in Vrindavan. So Vrindavan is fulfilling the order of the spiritual master Krishna, and um, and here Lord Ramacandra, he sends his brothers out to fight, though he's his brothers, simply to fulfill his order. So, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Lord Ramachandra ki.